Hello everybody and welcome to the stream. Tonight we're going to pick up where we left off last night with our UI system. And we've got just a couple of quick things to note before we jump into that. We'll get going on that. We're going to be adding some input to interact with our button tonight. So that is what we want to focus on tonight. And then we're probably going to do a little bit of work also to make it a little bit more extendable, configurable, get rid of some of the hard-coded things, things like that. And then we'll move on to the next control, right? So before we jump into that, though, I do want to take a quick second and just thank the supporters of the channel. These are the folks that support me on Patreon and YouTube memberships, as well as Twitch subscriptions. I'd like to start with the partners, who are the top tier of Patreon and YouTube support. They are A.R. Slea, Gerbolis Inc., and Patrick Kuhlman. And I'd like to thank all the other supporters listed here on the screen, who are the other tiers of support on Patreon and YouTube memberships, as well as Twitch subs. So thank you all very much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you viewers who either finds me here on Twitch or later on YouTube when the VODs are uploaded there. Of course, without you guys, none of this project would exist or be possible. So thank you guys very much for being here, interacting, and so forth. I really appreciate it. That being said, this stream is interactive, so I do monitor chat, so if you guys have any questions or want to discuss something, feel free to jump into chat, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. And for any of you that are viewing this on YouTube, of course, feel free to come on over to Twitch if you happen to see me go live, right? And we can talk about stuff live. So, all right. With all that done and dusted, one thing that where we sort of left off last night was we had the 9 slice up on the screen, and it was mostly working, but it looked like some of the texture coordinates were wrong, and we had some things to sort out with the geometry. I went ahead and sorted those out off camera, and so I'm going to do a git diff on that just to show you guys what the differences are, and they were really minor, like I thought they would be. So one thing to note was on when we're generating the 9 slice, we had a couple positions wrong where we were doing some calculations incorrectly. And so it was literally just a matter of moving a couple of those things around. So I haven't checked these in, but I will check them in, of course, with everything else at the end of the night, right? And also our Atlas Max was also wrong. It was off by 1 pixel, right? So that all has been fixed. And if we go over to run the application, we can now get a gander of what it's actually supposed to look like, which is this guy here, right? Now, there's a couple things to point out. It does look a little bit like the border is missing from here, and this looks a little bit thicker than this other side over here with the black border. All those things are actually optical illusions, right? It's just because of the way it displays against the red here, right? So we can move that in a little bit to underscore that a little bit further, but this actually is rendering the way that it's supposed to be. In fact, to illustrate this point, here's a capture that I took in RenderDoc earlier, and we can see when we're zoomed in that it looks correct, right? Of course, since we're using nearest neighbor interpolation, unless we're actually scaling this to a multiple of 4, essentially, or 2, I should actually say, we're always going to get a little bit of weirdness right here, right? But that's more having to do with texture lookups than anything else, right? So, okay. So, with that, the next thing that we're going to do tonight, Coffee Lava. What's going on, man? Pog. Welcome to the stream. Awesome. Finally caught a stream. Welcome, man. Good to have you here. All right. So what I'm looking to do tonight is we're going to add a little bit of input to the button. And then once we get that working, we'll come back and we're actually going to make this code a little bit more less repetitive, right? And then we're also going to get rid of some of the hard hard-coded things that we're passing into this when we're creating it, which is from here, right? So we basically want to take all of these things in as parameters, right? So we're going to get rid of some of this hackiness, but before we do that, I want to add input. So the way that I'm going to handle input is basically in the structure for SUI control, we already have function pointers for destroy, load, unload, update, and render. And what we're going to also do is, there's actually two ways we could handle this, right? We could either add an event listener for click, for example, or keyboard input, or we could simply pass that down from the UI system and let the UI system sort of interpret that and then decide which control should actually get it. And so for mouse clicks, I'm actually going to go the second route. And for keyboard input, I'm going to go the first route, right? And the reason for that is we want to be sure that when we click an element, if we have multiple elements on top of each other that could receive a click event, we want to make sure that we have control over whether or not that element bubbles up or propagates down through the controls, right? We want to be able to control that individually. So that's the reason we're going to do that. And so to do that, we're going to add an optional function pointer to handle that. So I think for now, I'm going to say we're going to return a Boolean as to whether or not this event should propagate, right? And we'll say, do we want to say onClick or handle click? Let's do onClick. I guess that's kind of a more standardized way of doing it. So we'll say struct SUI control self, and then we're going to have an X and a Y on the screen, right? So, actually, you know what? We may actually want to actually put different data in there, and we may need to add parameters at some point. So instead of doing that, I'm actually going to type def a structure. I'm going to call this, let's call this SUI mouse event, right? And this is going to have a U16X, U16Y. And that's all it's going to have for right now. But I'm thinking we're going to be adding more to this. So rather than have a whole mess of parameters, I think it just makes sense to do this. So as far as the event itself goes, we're just going to probably take a copy of the event because it's not a very big structure. And I don't think it's ever going to be very big. Certainly not to the point where it's going to impact performance. So we'll say struct SUI mouse event, right? But this is not going to be a pointer. It's just going to take a copy of it. And so I guess we probably ought to add a little bit of commenting here. So we'll say the left click handler for a control. And we're going to add lots of other event types too, right? It's not just going to be left click, obviously. This is just the first one we're doing. And then param self a pointer to the control. Oops, I didn't name this. Right, we'll call that event the mouse event, and then returns true if the event should be allowed to propagate to other controls, otherwise false. Just in case we forget how that works later, because we probably will. Wait a minute, are these methods? Did I say method? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of touching on that a little bit, but like, I think it makes sense, right? Because this could be optionally defined. This is opt-in. So controls that want to use it can use it, and if they don't have to. And so we need some way in the... Yeah, I know, right? Hey, look, I'm not saying things like VS Code, okay? Even though my beep was late there.
What in the hell?
But, you know, it happens. We're not ooping it up, though. This is about as close to oop as we're getting, right? All right. So this is just the first one that we're doing. And let's see. Let's go to... I'm actually thinking we probably don't need to export all of these things. One second thought, we could probably take a lot of these out of the header. But for now, let's see. When we set this guy up, we need this. And basically, if we're going to have, we'll do a check to say if not self, right? Return false. Let's change this to SUI button on click, right? Otherwise, we're going to return true. So we're going to allow event propagation for now. We could probably have that be a configurable item. So like when you set up the control itself, you could probably configure that. So maybe to do configurable event propagation. So that makes sense. And I think all we're going to do is, for the on-click, at least for now, is output a debug message. Click. Keep it nice and simple for now. And we can actually make this static, because we don't need that outside the compilation unit. And event handlers, we'll say out control on click equals SUI button on click. Right? So now we have that. And what we'll do is we'll set up the UI system itself to sort of pass this down to this control. And initially we'll do it sort of in a naive way, and then we'll get a little bit more clever with it once we have the basics working. Jack MC Live, first time chat. Welcome to the stream. First off, this looks really cool. Nice job. Also your NeoVim looks really cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. So we're writing a game engine pretty much completely from scratch. There's only a couple of small libraries that we're using, which is to load images and another one to load fonts, because I just didn't see the value of enrolling that by hand. But everything else we're doing is completely from scratch, including the UI system, which is what we're doing now. So, yeah, if you check out the kohiengine.com there, it's got all the details, links to the source code, all that's completely open source. Widget based, I wouldn't say it is, no. This is going to be basically like I guess it's kind of similar to like if you've ever used I guess you could say like the Windows API. Not really the Windows API, but more so how the controls are sort of split up. It's like we have individual kind of controls, right? So we have like buttons and panels and stuff like that and radio buttons. So it's, I don't know that I would call it widget based. But yeah. Okay, so let's go over here. Actually, you know what? I can get rid of this window for a minute. So let me think. Where do I want to... I think I can literally just pull the event system actually instead of listening for any sort of message. So include systems. You know what? I think I'll do it this way. UI system initialize. We're actually going to need to store. I guess I could call this a vec2i. Mouse state and vec2i previous mouse. Actually, this is position, not even really state, right? It's just position. That's what I need to pass in my events too, actually. I knew there was something else I was going to have to do there. So buttons. Mouse button. Right? We need to know actually which button was clicked, right? So actually, I guess I could just... This is really just a click handler in general. Like, it could be a right click as well. I don't even have to specify, right? We could just check that inside of here. Let's do that instead. And instead, actually, you know what? Instead of pulling this, let's input... Let's see. Button pressed. Here we go. So these are the mouse events here. I'm just giving myself a quick refresher here because it's been a while since I've looked at this code. So essentially, let's see. This is the press and release. Do we actually have a click handler in here? We might not, actually. So this is when the button is pressed and released. So we have both of those events, but like a click is kind of a combination of both of those two. So this is drag releases, which I wouldn't want to include it in that. So I guess I could also say yeah, because see we have button pressed and button released, but we don't have button clicked. So that's an important bit we're missing. Let's see, we got anywhere I can shove this in here. Guess I could put it after this. Actually, I guess it really doesn't matter too much, does it? So I guess let's put it right here. We'll add a new event code. Clicked, right? Jack, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And I see a stretch redeem. And Scary, thank you for the follow, by the way. Appreciate that. I'll go ahead and stretch. Hey, Mighty Loopy, how's it going? Welcome. Y type def struct x, basically. The reason I'm doing that is because in some places where I for declare it and I type struct, I could just type struct x everywhere, right? And then if I'm somewhere where I actually have that type included via header file or otherwise, then I could just type the name, X or whatever. But it allows me to use the same name in both places, essentially. Specifically in places where the struct also includes like a reference to another struct of the same type. It just allows me to kind of use the same name in both places. All right. So we're going to bump these up a little bit. So these are each going to get bumped up by 1, 8, 9. Right, we skipped some here for some reason. I don't remember the reason for that, but it might have been so we had room for these, right? So there's our button click. So we'll say pressed, then released. And we'll need to figure out, so this will fire the down or the up. And then I guess we could say we should probably keep some sort of timer. So I'm trying to think if I guess if we have a mouse up, right, and we haven't had a mouse drag, then that's a click. So we'd still want to fire this. But then also, let's see, if not pressed, and we're currently dragging the button. Okay, so I think we're actually going to split this up a little bit. So we're going to do this and then say if that. Right, and then we'll say if not a drag release, then it is a click, right? Jordy Mac, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Weird Trash Can, hello. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Good to see you again. We are just sorting out something I found that we needed to add for inputs. And then we're going to add inputs to our button that we've been working on. So in this case, actually, we're going to fire another event. Right, so this is in the case that we're releasing. Here we're going to say button. And then we actually don't need all of this. This is going to be button clicked. Right. Mouse current X and Y button. That should do it. I'm going to go ahead and just put a trace in here real quick. Oops. Do I not have logging in here? Yeah, I do. I wonder why that was not. There we go. All right, and I'll just say click for this one. And then for this one, we'll say pressed. Otherwise released. Just to sort of make sure that we got all this right. So let's actually go ahead and build this real quick. And I want to test this out. All right. So we have pressed, released, and clicked, right? But if I press, start dragging, and then release, it's just a release, right? So we've got our click working. Beautiful. All right. I'm doing fine as well. Thank you for asking. You're finally understanding DirectX 12. Awesome. When I get to that point, I may have questions for you because I've not used DirectX 12 yet. I've used 11 and 10 and even 9, but not 12. All right, so let's get rid of this and this. We don't need that anymore. And now we can just listen for that click event. So let me go to testbed main, because we actually have a decent amount of examples in here. So we'll just say game on event. We'll just take this. And we'll go back to here. Actually, we'll go up here. And we'll just do standard UI system. God, I can't type tonight, apparently. I guess I'll just make this a click handler. It's fine. Go ahead and make this static. We're going to return true here so that other event handlers can handle that as well. And when we initialize, if we're successful, we're going to come down here and listen for input events. And we have event. Oh, you know what? I don't have inputs, or I don't have events here. So include core event.h. So event register. The code is going to be event code button clicked. The listener is going to be the system itself, right? So we want that pointer, the state pointer, essentially. So we can just go ahead and pass state there. That'll be fine. We don't need to pass the casted version because we can cast that on the other side. And then here we can say, whoops. Here we can say standard UI system click. Right? So we listen for it there. In the shutdown, the first thing we're going to do after we get type state is we're going to stop listening for it. Right. And this is going to be event unregister. Okay. So this guy is going to get the typed state, which actually I need to grab from here. Oh, we got ads. All right. We are back. So for those of you that are new here, I'd like to pause the stream during ads just so that nobody misses anything. Everybody gets different lengths of ads depending on platform and locale and things like that, but I like to pause it across the board, right? Let's see. Yeah, there are like different DirectX 12s, which is kind of annoying. I don't know why they did that. They should have just called it 13. But maybe they didn't want to go with 13 because it's an unlucky number. I'm not sure. All right. So the listener instance is what we want to convert, right? So that's how we get our state. I'm not 100% sure we're actually going to need that right away. Actually, yes, we are. Because type state, we are actually going to go through all of the SUI controls. And we're just going to sort of naively handle this at the moment, and then we'll, like I said, make it better as we go. And basically what we're going to do is check each individual control to say, hey, is this click event that we got within the bounds of you? And actually, before we even check that, we're going to say, hey, do you have a click handler? And if they don't have a click handler, we're going to skip it. So we could actually, you know what? I'm actually not even going to do, I'm not actually even going to go down the tree. I think I'm literally just going to go through the active controls. Right? I think that actually makes sense. I think active controls. Let's see. We do have active control count, so I guess we can just look at that. Okay. So let's do a simple loop here. We'll say for U32 I equals 0, I is less than, type state, active control, count, plus plus I. And for each one of these, we'll say if type state, active controls, sub I, onClick exists. You know what, I'm going to get a convenience pointer to that, actually. SUI control equals address of type state, active controls, sub I. And then we could just do this. So if the control has an onClick handler, to do check bounds. And I have that as a to-do because we don't actually have bounds, right? We don't have bounds reporting at the moment. Oh, I think this is an array of pointers already, actually. Yeah, it is. I don't need this. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is actually generate some bounds. And I think probably the way to do that is going to be, we're going to need a vector 4i, kind of like our vector 2i. And we'll have the control, I guess during the loading phase, define what those bounds are, right? And then we can use those to naively check this. Now, obviously, we're going to have to transform those bounds by the transformation matrix and things like that. But for now, we're not going to bother with that, right? You don't see something like a semaphore for DirectX 12, really? Do textures, resources in Vulkan have some kind of barriers? There's memory barriers, yeah. For like image format transitions and stuff like that, yeah. Yeah, there are. Those exist. Those are a thing. And admittedly, I haven't completely wrapped my head around all of them yet. Every once in a while, and I have to go back to that. I have to remind myself how all that works. Okay, so we need some sort of bounds checking. So let's go to, actually we want math types. And so I'm actually going to go to this. I'm going to copy pasta just like I did before. Except we're just going to use basically a different type, right? And the only reason that I'm not unioning this instead of adding a different type, right, is because I want it explicit what this vector is actually being used for. I don't want you actually creating a vector thinking it's got floats in it when it really has integer data, right? That could be really, really bad. So this is going to be vector 4i t, and this will be vector 4i. And then we'll have, would we use I32s? There we go, for the 4 elements there. 4 element integer based vector, right? And so our bounds are actually going to be represented by one of these. So that means our control probably ought to have that added as well. So I'll put that vec 4i bounds, right? And we don't have to actually set this up if we don't want to. We can not use it. If we have a control that doesn't use it or doesn't care about it, that's fine. Totally a valid situation. in that case, it'll just be 0 and it'll fail any collision checks, right? Which is fine anyways. We shouldn't be checking those if they don't have a click handler anyway. So let's see. When we go ahead and load this guy, we're going to say self bounds dot x. In this case, we're going to 0 base it, right? Only because we don't actually have, we're 0 basing all of this, and then we'll use the transform to actually slide it around, right? So these are untransformed bounds. Self bounds y equals 0, which I guess I don't even really have to type that. Self bounds width. We're going to set to self size. I thought we had size in here. We not? Oh, typed data size. .x. And self bounds height is equal to typed data size y. And then, obviously, anytime we change the size and shape of this, we'd want to update that. But we're not doing that right yet, so we don't need to do that, right? We just set this and move on. So now we can say, well, first off, we need to get the event data, right? So we had that, let's see. Well, I know we put the, did we not put the, okay, our comment is wrong. So I16, yeah, I16 indices 1 and 2 hold the x and y. Let me copy this, I paste it here. And we have x and y, and this is going to be index 1 and index 2. And the same is actually going to be true for this one and this one. And we're also both missing that, right? What good is the comment if it's wrong? Okay. So let's go ahead and get the event, right? So we'll say what do I call it? Mouse event? SUI mouse event. EVT dot mouse button equals context data I16 index 0, and we'll cast this to buttons, right? And then we'll go do X on this one, Y on that one, and then there we go. So we've got the event, X and Y parsed. So now we'll check its bounds. So if evt.x is greater than or equal to control bounds x and EBT dot x is less than or equal to control bounds x plus control bounds width. So we'll just do that. We'll nest these to make it a little easier to read. Right, and this is just going to essentially be the y-axis check. Right, so if we have that, then we have a actual click. In which case, let's see. In which case we'll have the control instance where we can then say control on click, pass the control, and then the event. Right? And for right now, I'm not even going to bother checking the Boolean, right? We're just going to see if it works. All right. See what we get. Taman, hello. How are you? Welcome. Good to see you. All right, so we click the panel, nothing happens, right? We click the button, and we have click. I should probably do something a little bit more explanatory, right? But like if we click the button, we get a click message. If we click outside of it, we don't. So it seems like that's implemented correctly, right? I guess I could search for this, right? And then say clicked, put the name of the control, right? So self that name. That way we know what we clicked, right? Here we go. Click test button. So we have our basic input hooked up and working, which is awesome. So that's definitely an important step. Now, obviously, if I move that button, that's not going to work, right? So we're going to have to do a little bit of transformation to make sure that that is how it needs to be, right? Wiggler, hello. Welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing? We are just implementing input. All right. And so obviously this is a test function, right? Like we wouldn't actually hard code a button's click event, right? Like we would do that when we actually, in fact, let's get rid of this. And I'll get rid of that in a second. Right, we would actually want to do this in the place where it's created, right? So SUI button control create, right? So we could actually do it like here, right? We've got to have somewhere to put this. So I guess I'll just put it, let's see, application initialize. Let's put it up here with the other event handlers, right? So we'll call this SUI test button on click, right? That should do it. And then here we can say state test button on click equals SUI test button on click, right? So we can, in our application code, assign that, right? So we actually are going to get rid of this, because that was just to test that to make sure that worked. Right. Pretty sure this will work, but I'm going to test it again to make sure I didn't break anything. Yeah, input can be fun. Yeah. So we're actually clicking our button and getting that, and when we click outside of it, we don't get it, right? So yeah, input definitely can be fun. It can also be really painful at times. And I'm sure we'll probably experience that pain on the stream at some point. Okay. So now that we have that in, we probably ought to focus a little bit on like moving controls around and seeing if we can get that to work under different circumstances, right? So every control has a transform, and so we can actually set a transform, right? So let me see, do I have some logic in here setting quaternions anywhere? Just because I'm lazy and I don't want to redo it. Here we go, from axis angle, right? Oops. In fact, yeah, I'm going to copy this example code that we have here. And in our creation, so once we've created this, we set the event handler. We can also come in here and set this up, right? So I guess we'll rotate it 45 degrees. That seems fine. We want to rotate it, however, on the z-axis. That's good, so it faces the screen, right? And then we obviously need to change what this is rotating. So we want to do test button transform, right? I think we called that X form, actually. Yep. And we're going to move it away from the corner. So we have 5 and 5 here. That's just 5 pixels. Let's go ahead and let's do 50 pixels and 50 pixels, right? And so that'll move and rotate that some. And that's going to break our clicking code, but we'll fix it. I just want to make sure that it actually shows up the way that we expect. Yep. Okay. So see, it's rotated a little bit, but now our clicking is not correct, right? Because it's not taking that into account, right? But if we go up here and click in the space where the button used to be, it works. So what we need to do then is essentially get whatever the vector is of we either need to get the inverse matrix rather of the transformation of the test button itself, and untransform it and compare against those bounds, or we need to transform the bounds by that and transform the mouse click by that, right? And then we should be able to get it. So I think probably the simplest way to do it, where do we put that? So we have what we need here to actually do this, right? I'm thinking thinking we can actually just transform. We need to get the matrix first, right? So mat4. We'll just call this, we'll call it model, because that's what it is, right? Transform get world. We need the address of control xform. Okay, that'll give us the world matrix. And then I think we can just rotate or translate this xy by that. Which we're going to have to convert to floats and then convert back. I think. I'm trying to remember how to do this. I think that seems right to me off the top of my head. It's been a bit since I've done this, right? So I think if we do... let's see. Vec2... Do we not have... I guess we could use vector3 transform and just pass nothing for z. Right, so if we do vec3 evt.x evt.y and then 0 as the z. I think this was 1.0 for position. And then the matrix itself is just going to be model. Right. And that returns a vector3. So we'll say vec3 transformed EVT. And then we should just be able to use that, actually. So keep hitting the wrong buttons. I'm actually going to just keep a copy of this in case I fumble it, right? And so we want transformed EVT. I think that's it, just the 4 spots. Okay. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure that my math is right on that one. It is definitely not. So let me think about this for a second. So if we take the inverse of this and just translate it back to here, it would definitely work. But that's not really what we want to do. We want to where did it actually go? Where is it referencing this actually? I think I'm going to have to do a similar check actually to what I did in the raycasting logic. But like a 2D version of that. So let me see. Did I say AABB? Raycast Raycast oriented extents, I think, is what I need. Yeah, so I did grab the inverse of the model, transform the ray. Maybe that's a step I'm missing. So for me, instead of transforming the ray, I would transform the mouse click position. And then, let's see, the inverse of this. Oh, I'm using the inverse of that to transform. That's probably where I went wrong. Okay, so what I should be doing is mat for inverse. Whoops. Mat for inverse model. And then this should be inverse. There we go. So now we can actually work with rotated buttons as well, right? So it looks like this is pretty accurate, right? We can click right along here and we don't get the event. We can click in here and we do get the event. So that looks pretty accurate, I would say. Good stuff. Okay, we're actually making pretty good progress tonight so far. So let me see. We should be able to leave the event as it is, right? Because we only use the transformed event to actually perform this check. The actual coordinates of the mouse click should not change. So we are actually done with this. The bounds check is actually that simple, right? There's not a whole lot to it. There is some heavy lifting here that has to be done, but it's not a huge deal. But the beauty of this is, as long as our bounds are accurate, for any object, now we can rotate it and have it in any orientation on the screen and have it be interactable, which is big, right? That makes it nice and flexible. Not that I'm saying we're going to have rotated buttons all the time, but if you did want to have some sort of fancy thing that rotates on the screen or something, you could definitely have that. Okay. So, the next thing on the list tonight that I kind of want to tackle is I kind of want to make the logic itself for this a little bit reusable, right? So what I mean by that is we kind of have this kind of thing going on, and then in our 9 slice itself, we kind of generate all of this data, right? But we don't really, like, if we wanted to change the data, we don't really have a way to change the data. If we wanted to, like, expand the button out or contract it or whatever, we don't really have a way to do that. And so we definitely should have a way to do that, because we're going to be expanding and contracting controls all the time, right? And so we definitely need that kind of capability. So what I'm actually going to do is a lot of this logic is actually going to wind up getting split out of this function. And all we're going to do in this generate 9 slice is basically this section of code. And then we're going to call a function to generate updated UVs and positions for it. Moosey Boy. Hello. Hi, I just popped in. How did you implement the click for a rotated button? So what we did there was almost the same exact thing for our raycast oriented extents. So let me actually go back. So what we have is our untransformed click comes in here, right, from our event. And then we loop through all of our controls, and then we say if our control has an on-click event, then we should actually go ahead and try and see if we clicked it. We get the world transform from its, I should say the world matrix from its transform, right? And so we say, what is that? Then we get the inverse of that, whatever that is. And then we transform the event by that matrix, right? And so here we're kind of using a hack because I don't have a version of this for vector 2. I'm using a vector 3 and just passing 0. But we call our vector 3 transform, which basically takes the vector 3 that's passed in and transforms it by the matrix that you provide. And that transformation is slightly different based on whether or not it is a point or a direction that the vector is. And so you either pass 1.0 for a position in space or 0 for a direction. And all that's in the comments, right? And then once we have that transformed position, we can then just do a simple axis align check on that to say, hey, is our transform position within the bounds of that rectangle that we defined? And that's all there is to it. So it sounds more complicated than it actually really is. But yep, that'll work now for any rotated control or anything that we have, right? That same logic will work. So we don't have to implement that separately every single time. Yeah, no problem. Okay. So for generate 9 slice, we're going to make another function. I'm going to call this B8 update 9 slice. Right? And this one is going to take only some of these parameters, right? So it's going to take a 9 slice pointer, right? So what do we call this? End slice, I guess we could call it. We're going to have to rename some stuff. It's fine. And then we're going to take a new size, Atlas pixel size. Actually, wait a minute. We don't even need to take all this crap. Theoretically, we could just update it on the structure and just call this again. So actually, all we need to do is that, right? And then we'll just say if not end slice, return false. Otherwise, return true. And then we want to keep all of our initialization code in generate. And then we're going to need pretty much everything from here. All the way down. Well, wait a minute, though. So we're acquiring from... We don't need to reacquire. But we are going to have to... Oh, you know what? We don't need to regenerate index data either. That's not going to change. Clumsy, thank you so much for the follow. And Gabe's Inferno, I must have missed your follow. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. What is this? Yeah, no, I'm not interested, Clumsy. Thank you. All right. All right, so I think we can just take all of... I'm going to take all of this for now. I know we're regenerating the index data and we don't need to, but I think I'm okay with that. Okay. So the issue with this is this is building up a configuration that we then load later, right? Which is here. We don't need to build up a configuration, right? All we really need to do is update the vertices. So when we did something like this in our debug box 3D, right? This guy. So when we do the color set, we do render geometry vertex update, which is what we're going to want, right? And so basically we're going to take the vertices and the vertex count, which we would already have, and do that, right? So I'm going to yoink that. And I'm going to put that here. All right. And I think what we can do... Do we actually store? Let me see something. Out 9 slice. Oops. Vertex count. Indices, vertices. We do actually store them on the geometry. Do we write that by default? I don't remember. I don't remember if that was something we did. So we have the geometry here. Doesn't look like we do. Render geometry creates. Render geometry upload. So this is all based off the config. Okay, so it doesn't look like we do that by default, but we can do it if we want to. So we are going to do that here. So instead of cleaning these up, instead of doing that, we're going to say out 9 slice G vertices equals out config vertices. And then out 9 slice G indices equals out config indices, right? And we'll just keep those things in memory. We actually need a way to destroy the 9 slice too. So by us keeping that here, I think what we really should be doing is so we have out config. So we need a way for the update to just care about a vertex array and an index array. So we should probably pass those things in that function too, I'm thinking. So like right here, we have these known types, right? So we could do vertex 2D verts and U32 indices. And actually, we don't even need to do the indices because we're just updating, right? So we're just going to update the verts. So let's take these guys and put them here. The Baker, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome to the stream. How are you doing tonight? Okay, so we have our verts and our indices. Let's take, actually, I'm just going to take this whole thing and eliminate what I don't need. So generate index data for the 9 quads, right? So we don't need this here. So we can get rid of that. All we need to do is generate the indices once. Once we have that, we don't need to update it or generate it again. Which also means we don't need to do this here. We just need to update that, right? Let's see, update. Okay. Now, what is all this bleating about? Out 9 slice. Right. So this is used in a bunch of places, and I guess it just gave up after a while. I didn't think that was going to work. All right. Let's see. It's basically going to just be this all the way down. All right. So any of these that are out 9 slice is just going to be this should be n slice size x, n slice, oops, corner size x, n slice size x, n slice. This will also let me check those, catch those, right? So we get these. And slice. See if I can catch these first. Size, size. It's corner size. So basically, I think I'm just going to change all these first and then go back for the other ones. Just seems a little bit more efficient that way. Probably what I should have done is just put outline slice at the top and rename the variable. That probably would have been much faster. Ugh, I'm kind of... You know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I don't want to do with all this manually. Be much faster to just do it that way. Alright, outline slice. Hannick, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. There we go. Much faster that way. Now all I got to do is just add the couple things here, where I was missing it in the first place anyway. Which is in more places than I thought, actually. But at least this way it'll make sure it's consistent across the board. Looks like I caught most of them towards the bottom. Cool. Alright, so I think that is updated for that. So basically that'll work on whatever vertex array I pass in. Go ahead and assign those things. And then what we need here is end slice geometry, which I think is already a pointer. Does this want a pointer or double? Oh, we don't have the renderer here. Okay. I suppose it's time to get that in here. So include renderer front end. Right, so we've got that. That's just a geometry pointer, so I can just do that. The vertex count is actually going to be end slice g vertex count, and then verts. Actually, I should just right, if I do that, and I rename this to vertices. And then update these in place. That should actually be end slice G vertices. All right. Oh, right. Data type issue. I'm going to have to cold cast each one of these, aren't I? That kind of sucks, but okay. So let's say... vertex 2D. And I'm going to have to wrap this, aren't I? That's annoying. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that here. Vertex 2D vertices equals end slice geometry vertices. Less annoying. Okay. So in order to create the geometry, we're actually going to have to do this up here. As for the config. And then generate the indices, and then the vertices should just work. We should just be able to call update 9 slice. And it should work. Right, so we'll say out 9 slice. And if for some reason this fails, failed to update 9 slice. See logs for more details. Now, the one exception to this is update 9 slice currently does this. So we should probably make it conditionally do that. So we'll say B8 re-upload. And then come back down here and say if re-upload then we do that, right? Otherwise we don't. And so here we would say we don't want to update, re-upload it. But external to this, anywhere else, we would basically say true there whenever we go to update that. All right. I don't think any of these other properties get added either. So I'm going to do out 9 slice. Vertex size. Vertex element size equals out config. Vertex size. Oops, vertex count. Index element size. Elements out config. Index size. Index count equals out config index count. Okay. That way we have a copy of all that stuff on the actual geometry, because by default we don't actually store that stuff. Unused variable verts. Line 497. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Okay, let's see if this runs or if I've hideously broken it. Hideously broke it, apparently. Oh. Yeah. That's not going to work. Because we don't actually have a geometry yet, because we haven't created it. Derp. I knew something about that felt off. Okay. So we can't actually do any of this until after this. Which means our update 9 slice is actually going to need an alternate source of indices, vertices rather. So, okay, I know how I can solve this. So, let's do, instead of this, we'll say vertex 2D vertices, right? And if we don't need an external source of vertices, we'll just pass nothing there. And if we pass nothing, then we'll use the geometry's vertices. So if not vertices, vertices equals that, right? So when we generate the 9 slice, we only want to do this when we pass nothing for vertices, or when we pass something for vertices, actually. No, when we pass nothing. If we're not passing vertices, it's a re-upload. Okay. So here, we will pass out config vertices. Dan Ogono, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. There we go. So that works. Our click still works. Sweet. Okay, so one step closer to reusability. The next thing that we're going to do is take this and go to H, and we have generate 9 slice. We're going to paste in update 9 slice, and here put it in our, okay, I think we might be live again. Are you guys able to hear me and see me? My OBS and completely froze up, and actually my display driver just totally took a poop. You're back. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I don't know what that was all about, but like my entire freaking like display driver just completely died on me. So that's pretty awesome. All right, but you guys can see and hear me now, right? You can. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, sorry about that. I literally got nothing as far as how and why that happened. I actually don't even know exactly where it died. So basically, what I was trying to figure out was like where this kind of stuff belongs, right? And actually, my stream preview here is just like not even loading or anything. Wild. Okay. 10:08 when you said F. Wow. Okay, that's been out for a while. All right. Well, most of it was me like trying to like figure out what the heck, where to put some of this stuff. But did you guys actually see where I moved all of the logic to for creating the 9 slice? And the part that sucks about that is I think my recording went with it, so I'm gonna have to like re-download these from. Oh, you didn't see it. Okay. All right. So in geometry utils, the final version of this, so the update 9 slice, it takes in the 9 slice and then takes in an optional vertices array. And basically all the way down here, it does all the same stuff that it did before. But down here, if we don't provide the vertices array, it uses the one in the geometry. And then down here, if we don't have a vertices array, it performs a reupload using the geometry vertices. And the reason it does that is because we're basically saying if we pass a vertex array full of data, that's an external source and we haven't actually loaded yet. So we need to treat that slightly different than if we have already loaded and we're just updating the data. And so that's really the big difference, right? So this generate 9 slice now creates all the indices, right? But then calls update 9 slice and passes out config vertices, right? Which is this array that we were initially populating here. So it just passes that on. And then we call acquire from config. That does the thing, creates the geometry, uploads it to the GPU, all that fun stuff. And then comes down here and we copy over all those arrays and all those pieces of data to the geometry itself, which we don't do by default. Because we don't always need to hold on to that stuff. Usually we can just free it and forget about it for stuff that doesn't have to update it. But for stuff that does, we want to hold a copy of it, so we do. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, and the annoying part is like now the stream preview that I have does not seem to be like previewing correctly. So now I have no way of knowing when the actual stream dies. So I guess I'll just have to like closely watch chat and see if there's another F. I have no idea what happened there. Other than my display driver just completely took a poop. All right. Okay. So that is all done. And actually what we had, I did actually have that working. So just to show you guys, that is back in place, right? It's working. Woohoo, right? So we can click it and get our events and all that stuff still works. So the next thing I was going to tackle was resizes, right? So we can do that real quick, hopefully real quick. And theoretically, all that should be required for that is basically just a update 9 slice. So we should be able to just update the properties we need to and go from there, I think. So what I'm going to do is I think in the update loop, I don't know where. I guess anywhere could technically work. Let's do it here towards the top. Let's see. We don't need a scene loaded for this. To do testing resize. We're going to do a static F32. And I guess we'll say button width, right? And we're going to set that to, let's see. I guess we can set it to 200. We'll set it to 200 to start, right? And then we'll say on each frame, button width equals 200 plus, and then we'll say sign of p frame data, frame number, I guess we want. No, total time. There we go. So we'll take the sign of total time and multiply that by, I don't know, 5.0. Right? So that should give us something that just kind of stretches and squashes over time. Yeah, we're back up and running. Something catastrophic happened with my display driver, I guess. Not sure. First time I've had that happen. But yeah, OBS completely froze. So as long as you guys can still see me and hear me, we're all good. Okay, so now we can say test, state test button. Size, do we have? The size is in the internal data, isn't it? I think it is. What was it? This is base control stuff. So we have typed data. Okay, so we're going to need... Should I move size out of the internal data? Because size doesn't make sense necessarily for every single control. All right, I'm going to cheat and just put an accessor for this right now. And actually, I'm just going to put a set method. SUI button control width set. And we're going to have vec 2i. Actually, no. I32 width. And we need the button itself. Struct SUI control self. And if not self, turn false, turn true. Okay. So we need the typed internal data, and then type data size width equals width, and then update 9 slice, address of type data n slice, okay. I think this is supposed to actually be size X. Okay. And in theory, that's all we should have to do. So I need to just copy this. To there. All right. And from here, I can say SUI button control width set. This will be the state test button. And then we're going to take button width. And we're going to turn that into an I32. And all right. I think that's actually all we need to do to get that to work. So let's see how terribly this crashes. Let's actually see if it even runs with my display driver issues. Okay, so that seems to be fine, but we don't have an update happening here, which is a bummer. So let me think, what did we... So if we go to definition on this, we set the type data, internal data size X. Oh, wait a minute. Type data end slice size dot X equals width. We didn't actually update the 9 slice. Still doesn't seem to be working. Let me make sure that my update code is actually correct. Right, because we should be getting something here. Button width. Oh, is it literally? Yeah, it is changing. Right, it should basically be changing by 5 pixels at a time. I suppose I could do something a little bit more obvious than that. Right, let's go 50 pixels. Right, let's run this. And I'm just going to step over this a couple times just to kind of see. Yeah, so see we're changing the size here. So the button width there is doing what it should be doing. So I'm going to step through this and just see if I can't figure out update 9 slice. So this is top right should use that size, right? So end slice size is updated. Right, so it does look like we're setting all those things. So that is at least correct. So vertices is nothing, right? So we're using the geometry vertices for this. Set all those things. Oh, did I skipped too far out, I guess. Oh. It's because I'm an idiot. That's why. So remember this little section up here where we said, well, if we don't have the vertices, set it, right? That way we could set this. Well, this check is never going to succeed, right? So we'll just do a hack here. Using geoverts equals false. And then using geoverts equals true. And if we are using geoverts, then we want to do that. Which is probably the entire issue. So I'm going to disable these breakpoints and run again. See what we get. Here we go. So our button resizes. Right? So that's pretty neat. Now it is snapped to integer values, right? So that's why you see a little bit of snappiness going on there. But you know, that's it works. So the other thing that we need to update is our bounds, right? Because our click isn't going to change here, right? Looks inappropriate. I mean, I suppose I could make it go the other way, right? You're right, though. It does. Aruhiza, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome. So yeah, maybe let's go with the height instead, right? Let's get rid of this and go. Yeah, it's it doesn't exactly look right, does it? Button height, right? So instead of that, we'll do 50, and then this will just modify it by, I don't know, 20 pixels, right? Oh, you redeemed a stretch. Thank you for that. I do need it. Okay, so the last bit of this is just to update the bounds to the new size, right? So, and again, the method that we're using to do this is like a complete hack, right? Like this is not going to be the way that we're going to do it in long term. We probably ought to expose like a size pointer or something that we can easily set. DBA, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate that. Welcome. Okay, so we need to type data. Actually, I think it's available on bounds. And we're doing the height, right? So I know it says width right now, but I'm actually changing it to height. Change this to Why? Changing it to height because it looks inappropriate. Height. Right. Height set. Okay. I think. I think that should be good. Oh. That needs to be changed to Y. Okay. I suppose we could change both too, right? Maybe that would be the better way to actually do it. All right. So let's see what this looks like. It's a good test for the other dimension anyways. So there we go. Oh, you know what? I think my value started off at 200. Yep. This should be 50. All right. But we can see here that the height is now changing dynamically too. So in theory, what this means is when the mouse is here and I click now, I shouldn't get an event, but now I should. Right? So I don't get it when it's contracted in size, but when it grows in size, I do. And it works. I'm not sure that that's much better than the other orientation, to be completely honest with you. But it's something, right? It demonstrates that it works that way. So, Zafre, I hope I pronounced that right, but welcome. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. I'm doing great. How about you? So yeah, I think we've actually kind of accomplished quite a lot tonight. So we got basic input working. We have the ability to resize and rotate and whatnot, and have that interaction work no matter what we do, right? And it seems to work just fine, which is awesome. So I think that's really good progress. 23-minute stream, I know, right? Sucks it's kind of cut in half, but then I'm gonna have to patch it together for YouTube, but it is what it is, right? Nothing I can do about it. Have I heard about Zig? I have heard about Zig, but I've never used it, so I don't know much about it. Here, our pulsating button, yes. It does the thing. Now, if we used floats for this, that would be a lot smoother, right? And maybe we could use floats. I don't know. I mean, we could probably switch it to floats pretty easily. The only reason I didn't use floats is because subpixel stuff tends to look weird in UI, so I went with integers. It wouldn't be hard to switch over though if we really wanted to do it. Okay, cool. So, would you recommend to learn OpenGL before going into Vulkan? I heard it was harder to work with Vulkan. Believe it or not, I actually still say yes. And the reason is because Vulkan is pretty complicated. It's pretty complex. It's very verbose. And you need to have an understanding of graphics programming concepts before you really get into it. So OpenGL definitely would probably be good to at least understand it on a high level, right? Because if you understand that, then concepts in Vulkan will be a lot easier to understand. So I would still say yes, even though OpenGL is deprecated everywhere and it's ancient and old and everybody's trying to get away from it for the most part. it's still not dead. It's still very much viable. It's still very much usable. And so I would say create, a couple renderers with that, just to understand how it works before you jump into Vulkan. What is my experience about game engines? So I've written technically 2 professionally. I suppose you could say 3. They were all proprietary engines for companies I've worked for in the past. But those were all, fairly lightweight and 2D engines. They weren't anything too crazy, right? But I've done a lot of game engine programming on the side, and have used it to power a lot of projects for contract work and other stuff over the years. As well as I'm going to be using this one to power several games that I have planned to actually release. But as far as like how many I've written, personal engines, I've probably written 35 or 40 of them. Just trying different paradigms, trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I would say probably about 2/3 of those were OpenGL. A couple of them were in older versions of DirectX, and a few of those were in Vulkan. But yeah, so this one right here is Vulkan based for now. Well, I say Vulkan based, it's a plugin, right? So the engine itself doesn't know anything about what rendering backend API we're using. It doesn't care, right? You could use OpenGL, Vulkan, DirectX, it doesn't care. Have I worked with Unity or Unreal Engine? Yes, both. Although, admittedly, I haven't touched Unity since version 5, I want to say, so it's been a while. And then Unreal, I did some stuff early in Unreal when 4 first came out, but most of my experience with Unreal is Unreal 3. And actually some Unreal 2.5. I've not touched Unreal 5 at all, other than to sort of look at it for technical reasons and just kind of poke around in it, but I've not actually made a game with it yet. And I've messed around a little bit with Godot as well. But yeah, mostly what I deal with is proprietary engines. Okay, cool. So despite my graphics card issues from earlier, this is actually all I had really on the roster to do tonight. So the next thing is basically going to be moving on to like different button states, which I'm not quite ready to tackle tonight. But it's things like you have different different states for controls, right? Like these buttons here, like if I hover over it, it kind of highlights a little bit, and then if you click down on it, it highlights a little bit more. So we're going to be adding those states to our controls as well, or any controls that should have them. And now that we have clicking in place, we can also very easily implement hovering, utilizing basically the same logic. It's just instead of that being activated on a click, it's activated by just mousing over something. Yeah, so we'll add states. Maybe we'll add some text at some point, and then just kind of keep building out the rest of our controls. So I think this is probably where I'm going to leave this for tonight, actually. Because I know I've been doing a lot of long streaming lately, and I think tonight I'm going to keep it kind of short. So I think, unless you guys have any questions or things you want to bring up, I think I'm probably going to end the stream early. Just because I'm a little bit tired as well. I will go ahead, though, and do a diff on this real quick just to see. Taz, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. While you guys are kind of watching me do this diff here, I'm going to drop my social links in chat. So these are all the different places, social media stuff you can follow me on and whatnot, Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to follow me there. Follow me here to see when we actually go live next. And then also do check out my YouTube channel because all this stuff gets archived over there. And plus I have the very beginning of this series, so I have video all the way back to when we first started this project, as well as other videos on other things that I've done along the way. So we are gonna, just kind of keep going with this, and this project's been going about 2 years, and we're gonna keep it going, right? So yeah, I would encourage you to follow me on those places, and once I get through this diff, which I'm almost through it, I'm gonna pick somebody to raid. Okay, all this looks good. All right. Yep, that works. That looks good. So we have dynamic button resizing, 9 slice, updating, re-uploading. Click input handling. Wow, I told it to snooze ads. Why is it giving me ads now? Oh, Twitch. Why have you done this? Are you guys seeing ads right now? I'll wait till the ad break timer is over before I actually raid then. Got about a little under a minute on ads. Okay, I think we're back. So, that's going to do it for tonight's stream. I'm going to pick somebody to raid real quick. And I think I'm going to go with Jitspo. He's making like a retro FPS project that's looking pretty cool. And I really like the way that that it's looking. He's using Godot. And so let me just make sure that I think my network is hiccuping again, so I'm going to go ahead and just start the raid now. Because I have a feeling my my display driver is about to give out on me again. It's just acting very funky. So anyways, thank you guys so much for following me tonight, and I apologize about the hiccup in the middle there. But yeah, go ahead and check out Jitspo's channel. He's got a really cool looking project. He's doing some really cool stuff in Godot. So check that out, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.